exercise 5 and exercise 6. Now, exercise 5 is a preparation of smears and stain. Bacteria are usually either when they're individual, when we have them in a microscope slide, they're translucent, they're transparent, we cannot see them, right? So we need to help bacteria in order for us to make it visible. Now we do that via staining. Staining is a technique that everyone uses in order to make material visible under a microscope. Now, stains can be, there are two kinds of stain when we're talking about direct staining. So, a positive stain or a negative stain. Now, the difference between these two is that positive stains or direct stains are positively charged, or partially positively charged, whereas negative stains, as their name says, partially negatively charged. Now, because of the composition of the cell wall or cell membranes, we usually have organic molecules that are negatively charged or partially negatively charged in our bacteria. When interacting with a positive stain, that stain tends to be retained or stay around the bacterial cell wall and the bacterial cell membrane, causing us to see the bacteria when we're staining them. The negative stains, because they're partially negatively charged, when interacting with our bacterial cell wall that is also partially negatively charged, will tend to repel. And in a negative staining, what we try to stain is the background. And then what we have clear is the bacterial itself. There are some advantages for using that technique. I will discuss them a little bit later now. The direct staining uses one technique that's very important. It uses a technique that's called heat fixing. Heat fixing is a technique that we use to basically stick the bacteria to our microscope slide so we don't wash it off while we're doing the staining. Negative stain, and this is where some of the advantages come, do not use heat fixing. Now, preparing a smear, which is the main activity for this exercise, it's as simple as doing an aseptic, transferring aseptically from a slant to a microscope slide. We need a liquid medium to make that transfer. That liquid medium will vary depending on if we want to do a direct staining or a negative staining. If we want to do a direct staining, we are going to use water. So what we do to make a smear is we put a drop of water in the middle of our slide. We aseptically obtain bacteria from our source plant and then grab a loop full of bacteria. We transfer that to that drop of water and then we let it air dry. Once it's air dry, in our Bunsen burner, we're going to quickly pass over the fire that microscope slide and your bacteria will be fixed. So that's the heat fixing part, is just passing your microscope slide through the Bunsen burner fire. Now in the negative stain, what we do is instead of using water, we will use the stain directly. We don't want to wash off that material from a microscope slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a drop of stain and we're going to aseptically transfer bacteria from our source to that drop of stain, and then we are going to spread it throughout our microscope slide. And what happens when we do heat fixing is that there could be some modifications to the original morphology of the bacteria. So if we want to be sure that we're looking at that, that's when we use negative stain to avoid changes that heat fixing may cause to the external morphology of the bacteria. Another advantage of using that, there are some structures that are very, very difficult to stain. Capsule, for example, is impossible. So what you do is you basically stain the background, stain the bacteria, and leave the capsule translucent. So the only way to see the capsule is by not seeing it at all, if that makes sense, but seeing everything else. All right, so that's a bit of the advantages of using negative staining. So for this exercise, we're working on pairs in activity 1, and you are going to prepare a smear as a direct staining using Micrococcus nudus. First modification from what your lab manual says. Your lab manual says to use E. coli. We're using ml to do this. So we're gonna put a drop of water, a very small drop of water, using the droppers on top of your bench, not the squishy bottle, because if you use the squishy bottles, you're going to put too much water, and then you're going to let it air dry. All right? Up to there, we're going to stop at step 1, activity 1, and then continue to activity 2. In activity 2, we're going to prepare a negative stain where we will use either nigrosine or Congo red, depending on what you have on your station. You will put a drop of stain at the edge of one slide. You are going to aseptically transfer bacteria, E. coli. In this case, we're going to transfer E. coli, and then you are going to do a technique that is called feathering. So when we put the drop of water stain at the edge of the microscope slide, I'm going to transfer the bacteria septically, take another microscope slide, put it in an angle in the outer edge of that drop, and then I'm going to spread that drop across my microscope slide, and let that microscope slide air dry. Once that microscope slide is air dry, then we finish our negative staining. We look it under the microscope. 1 per group. 1 negative slide, 1 positive slide. We get up to step 1 on the first one, and then activity 2. It really is not divided up in very many steps.